everybody, and apologies for the technical delay there. We've had to swap laptops at the last minute. Really great to see you all arriving today. You've obviously met me before through transition last year. It seemed a long time ago when your children were nervous year sixes, moving forward to have to come in here. We're really pleased you made the decision. We hope tonight's going to be a really successful evening. Obviously, Mrs. Haynes is delivering virtually as well, and Mr. Benson is here that you've also seen. We'll do a general Q&A at the end, and obviously Mrs. Haynes will go into more detail about that as the evening progresses. But I'll hand you over to the fabulous Mrs. Haynes now.
Thank you. And I have practiced earlier, so I'm hoping this is going to go without a hitch this afternoon. Thank you all for joining us. It's really great to see lots of you on with us. It is a bit of a strange one meeting virtually, but we felt it's really important to give you an update on how year 7 was going. I'm going to ask Mr. Benson if you keep an eye on the chat. You should be able to type in any questions as we go in the chat function, hopefully. If you have any questions, please make them general questions that would be useful to everybody. If you have specific questions, then please, we would like to address those privately, separate to this meeting. So if there's anything as we go through you need to ask, Mr. Benson will be keeping an eye on the chat. If he can answer any of those questions, then he will do, but we will go through them as we go through the evening, as we go through the meeting, because I know there may be some parents and carers who aren't able to access the chat function. So we will go through in case there's anything of interest to you there. So I'm just going to pop up, and hopefully it will work really quickly this afternoon. My PowerPoint, it was there just now, but I wanted you to be able to say hello to us, to see our faces for a moment. Just bear with me. And any minute now we should have on screen. Mrs. Abdullah, can you see that okay? Yeah, that's fantastic. Okay, so as Mrs. Abdullah introduced herself, you've also got myself, head of year 7, and Mr. Benson, who is deputy head of year 7, on with you this evening. And Mr. Poulton is here checking we don't have any technical hitches that we can't fix. So welcome again to everybody. This evening I want to give you a little update just on the settling in period that we've had with year 7. We would normally do this sort of later in October with all of the form tutors on school site, but the nature being as it is at the moment, we can't have people on school site. We did feel it's important just to share an update with you and let you know how things are going. I also want to make sure that this evening you leave with some important contact details so that you are able to contact the most important and relevant members of staff that you need to speak to. So if during the course of the presentation you want to take any snapshots of the screen, or if you need a pen and paper just to jot down any of the contact details, then please do so. I also then want to go through what are the next steps for year 7, where we're working towards and what we look to do next with them. And then at the end, we'll have any questions which you feel would be relevant to anybody who is here on the meeting this afternoon. So I'm really, really proud of the way currently year 7 have settled into Cwmbran High School. We have to remember that this year group has had a very turbulent last 2 years. Year 5 and year 6 were very intermittent for them at school. They haven't had the same transition that we would have previous to COVID. They've had a better transition perhaps than the year group before them. We had a few more opportunities for them, but they have settled really, really well into Cwmbran High School in general. Our attendance in year 7 is currently around 92%. We normally would be aiming for 95% with all of our year groups. However, under current conditions, 91.6% we were yesterday. That's a pretty good going considering the normal coughs, colds and illnesses, as well as the COVID issues that we're having and pupils isolating and so on. So that's a really good attendance level, and we would hope to try and keep it as high as we can, but obviously keeping everyone as safe as we can. I'm very, very impressed with the attitude to learning of our year 7 pupils. They've come in and they are settled in class on the whole. They're generally very engaging and cooperative. And so far we've had almost 5,000 positive points awarded to year 7 pupils, which is absolutely phenomenal. And those points later on in the year will turn into prizes for those children as we go through the year. But they will learn more about that that as we get into sort of end of term rewards, prize giving and things like that. Uniform is excellent throughout year 7. Just a few things just to point out, that the jumper is the compulsory item now, that they should have a school jumper with them. The blazer is not compulsory. So please could you just ensure that the children do have a jumper. While it was warmer, we didn't really ask that they were wearing it, but obviously as the weather's now turning, it's getting a bit colder, they will need a jumper around school. And most children are coming to school very well equipped and ready to learn. If I can ask all parents and carers just to ensure that your children do have the basics: pens, pencils, ruler, rubber, just the very basic equipment that is necessary, and just check in with them every so often, because I think they don't remember to say when they get home and their pens have run out. So yeah, if you could just check in every so often to make sure that they are coming to school with those basic equipment items, we'd be very grateful. And okay, so how are we doing as regards our safety procedures for COVID? We want you to be assured that we're doing everything we can to keep children safe. Masks are supposed to be worn in all communal areas around school, and we are finding at the moment that lots of children are coming to school without a mask. So if I could ask all parents to ensure that the children do have a mask when they come to school, and at the moment the instruction is to wear it just around communal areas where they would be mixing with children from other year groups. If they have an exemption, a medical exemption, then please could you contact me via email. Just drop me a line to say they're exempt, and then I can ensure that's updated on our system. There is hand sanitizer in all of our classrooms for children to use as they come in and leave classrooms. We encourage children to regularly wash hands. We have had a few queries regarding soap in the soap dispensers in toilets, and it is replenished as often as we can. But unfortunately, not all children are sensible, and it does sort of tend to get wasted sometimes. But what I tend to do, and I know there are some children who can't use the sanitizers, but I tend to send my children to school with something that's appropriate for them if I'm particularly concerned about that. We do have a one-way system still in place around most of the school. There are a few areas of the school where that isn't possible. However, we generally have a sort of an exit from the classrooms and then an entrance by the next pupils, and it doesn't cause tremendous problems. However, if children are wearing masks around the school, that does benefit them when the one-way system can't be used. All of our desks in the classrooms are front facing only, and windows and doors are kept open for ventilation in the classrooms. We will monitor this now as the weather's changing and it's getting colder, but obviously we do have to take necessary precautions to keep children and staff safe at school. We encourage the lateral flow testing twice weekly, and those tests are available from the community testing centres. You can go and collect those. And if you check on the Torvine website, if you Google search for Torvine lateral flow test collection, and you will get a point then in the area where you can go and collect tests if you would like to continue using those. Just regarding the COVID symptoms, in case anybody still isn't familiar, it is quite well known now, but there are some conflicting pieces of information. If your child has any of the main symptoms, which is the cough, the temperature, or the loss of taste or smell, they do need to be kept home from school. You can do a lateral flow test at home, but they do need to be booked in for a PCR test if they have symptoms. Please just contact us on the absence line and let us know that's the reason that they're being kept at home. When you get the result, it's just reporting that through to school so that we can ensure that we take the necessary steps. If your test is negative, then the pupil can return to school as soon as they're feeling well enough. If it's a positive test, then Track and Trace will be in touch and they will give you a time period for your child to isolate. While your child is at home, we will be uploading all of the lessons being taught at school to the Google Classroom. Now, this might be just in the form of something that your child can read through. There may be a worksheet or something that they can have a go at on some paper, but there will be some classwork there that they can have a little look at just to try and keep up to date while they're at home. And what we suggest is that they just follow their normal timetable if they're well enough to, and just complete whatever they're able to. They are able to contact and message teachers through the Google Classroom if they need to do so. So contacting school, there are a number of reasons why you might need to contact school, but for your general questions, queries, or relaying some information about your child's well-being, then we would ask that you contact your child's form teacher in the first instance. Now on the screen you currently have form teachers for 7CH1, 2, 3 and 4. You have their personal email address there, so if your children are in any of those tutor groups, you may want to take a picture or make a note of the email address for your child there. I'll leave that there just for a second or two to give you a chance to do that. Our form teachers are an excellent team. We always have an excellent team of form teachers in all year groups, but year 7 are particularly good. They're very, very welcoming to the children when they join us, and they're extremely happy to contact parents, have a chat with you and discuss any concerns that you may have. Obviously, if there's anything that they need to pass on, they will, but most of the time they're able to deal with any of the queries you have. And so the next set of form teachers then for tutor groups CH5, 6, 7 and 8, they're on screen now, so you are able to take a picture or make a note of those email addresses there. 7CH7 have 2 form teachers because both of those members of staff are part-time, but either one of them will be able to support and help with your query. I'll just give you another second with that there. So they can answer most of your queries. However, if there is something more specific, some of the next numbers may help. So we have an absence line where you are able to report your child's absence. We ask that you can do this as soon as possible in the morning so that you don't get any unnecessary texts. We do text quite early on in the morning if a child is marked absent from school. So if the message has been left on our absence line, it just saves you receiving that text message. So it's the normal school phone number, and option 2 is the absence line, and it is a message system. So you just need to leave the child's name. If you can remember the form, that does help because we do have some children with the same names, and just a brief message regarding the reason for absence. If you have any concerns regarding your general progress or well-being, you can report that to me on my voicemail. It isn't working currently, so at the moment you will need to email me personally, but there will be, once it's up and running properly, a voicemail for me. That's again the normal school contact number. Option 3 is the heads of year line, and then I'm option 1 for head of year 7, and again that's a voicemail. You can leave a message and then I will get back to you as soon as possible. We have been trying to fix this issue over the last couple of weeks, and it's still an issue, but hopefully it's going to be resolved in the next few days. If you have something regarding a subject specific concern, please contact reception. So that's the normal school number and option 0, and the receptionist will then be able to email the relevant teacher or head of department if it is a subject specific query. And then, of course, if there are any, you've got my contact number for the phone, but my email address is on the screen there if you need to email me directly as opposed to the form teacher. And the head of school email address, Mr. Cook, his email address is there if there is something, you know, significant that you feel you would like to share with Mr. Cook. We're happy to take emails. I'll be responding to emails most evenings. They do come through to us also during the day, so it is one of the quickest ways to get in touch with us and to make sure that you get a response quite rapidly. As regards my voicemail, even when it's working, I actually can't really access voicemails until the end of the day, and so if it's a concern for something during the day, it's very difficult for me to deal with then if it's left as a voicemail. So emails generally are the best way forward, and then I will contact you as is required. So how do you know what's happening at school? You've probably found that the communication between secondary school and parents and carers is far less than primary school, and that's a bit of a shock to the system, I know, for lots of parents in the first few weeks of secondary school. You're used to having lots of contact with your child's teacher, and that's much more difficult now that they're at secondary school. We do have a class charts app which gives you lots of information regarding your child's behaviour and attitude for learning. That's positive and negative. Now, we haven't currently had those codes to be able to hand those out to parents just yet. As soon as we have chased those up, and as soon as they are available, we will get those out to you. We send text messages, and that happens on a regular basis. If you aren't receiving text messages at the moment, then please let me know, because we will need to check that all of the numbers on the system are correct. We do send letters. However, in COVID times, we aren't able to send physical letters very often unless they go in the post. So we often will send a text message with a link to the letter on the school website. So it is important that we have the text messaging service running well. You will get possibly postcards from departments, or maybe even a phone call just to let you know how your child's doing, or just to say they've done something particularly well, and that's always a positive. You may get a call from reception or wellbeing or first aid staff. If your child's upset or unwell, it would be from one of those members of staff. You might get an update from myself or from the form teacher periodically via text message or via call. We have a number of social media pages, and we use Facebook and Twitter, and on Twitter we have lots of separate pages. I have my own page for Year 7, so the school page and my own page are very useful sources of information. We periodically send out our Cwmbran Chronicle. I think that goes out termly normally, where you'll find lots of information about what's been happening at school, what the children have been up to, and anything that's coming up. There are progress checks 4 times yearly, and that will be posted home to you, where each member of your teaching staff will put a progress check for your child on their subject area. And then there would be an end of school year report. Please don't be afraid to get in contact at any time if you are concerned and you want to know about anything going on. It is, as I said, difficult when you're used to having lots of information from primary school, and so we do understand that, and myself and my form teachers are always happy to contact you. So if you are concerned, or if you just want an update, please don't be afraid to get in touch with us. And moving on. So what's next for our Year 7 pupils? They'll all be currently undertaking baseline assessments in English, maths and science. They've done some reading assessments, and this is really important because when they've joined us, they've gone into teaching classes which are set, but they are very loosely set on information and data from primary schools. Now, some of that data, while it is very useful at the moment, obviously because children have been in and out of schools more than they had been in previous years, then that data may not be as accurate as we would like it. So the reason for having the baseline assessments is so that we can do a proper reset of the year group now at October half term. We feel it's very important that all children are in the right environment for them to learn and to make the best progress they can. We want children in an environment where the pace of the lesson and the setting of the work is at an appropriate level, and that all children are supported but also challenged to achieve the best that they can. So we feel that by resetting now in October half term, we can ascertain that all those children are in the right place and learning at their best. There will be, as a result of baseline assessments, some literacy and numeracy interventions taking place, and if your child is looking at being involved in one of those interventions, you will be contacted by the relevant department. Progress checks, as I mentioned, will come out 4 times throughout the year, so we will be very shortly inputting data for progress check 1, which you will get in the half term after October half term, but before Christmas. And then our formal parents' evening is on the calendar for the 10th of May next year. So you won't actually talk to any members of staff about your child's progress until then, unless you specifically contact us and ask us to get in touch. So again, please don't be afraid to do that, because if you have any concerns, we would prefer to address those very early on. Okay, so I think I've covered lots of information there, and hopefully that has answered any questions that you may have regarding general settling in and how things are going and what's going to happen next. But I'm happy now to open up the chat and see if there's anything, or if anybody would like to pop on their mic and ask a question, then we're happy to answer any questions. Have we got anything in the chat, Mr. Benson? Oh.
Yes, Mrs. Haynes, we've got one question here so far. Will Parents' Evening likely to be virtually as like last year?
Okay, well, as a school, we would much prefer to do face-to-face meetings, but obviously at this stage, we don't know how we're going to be able to run for the rest of the year as regards in-school meetings. So if we can do it in school, on school site, then that would be great. Otherwise, we do now have the function of School Cloud. We used School Cloud last year. It does have, you know, drawbacks, but it serves a purpose when we can't meet at school. So one way or another, you know, it will either be face-to-face or virtual. We would prefer to hold it face-to-face if we can, but it just depends on how things pan out now and how the restrictions change over the rest of the year.
Okay, we've got a couple more. When children are set, how easy is it to move and how regularly will they be reset?
Okay, so we will be monitoring children's progress all of the time. So once they have been put into sets, those sets they have to be fluid because we need to ensure that children are in the most appropriate class and in the most appropriate set. So if children suddenly do particularly well or find there is a difficulty, we will move children around as is necessary. That obviously doesn't mean that we'll be moving them every other week because that's not good for them either. We want them in a settled environment. We want them comfortable where they are, but it's not a class that they'll be in forever. No more changes. And obviously, as they go through and do further assessment, we will relook at it. But for this school year, October half term is going to be the big change when lots of children are likely to be moving around. After that, there won't be a huge change until, you know, the end of year 7 going into year 8, where those sets will be looked at again.
Okay, thank you, Miss. We've got another question here. Somebody hasn't received any information on the cashless catering, and they're asking who do they chase, you know, to get this sorted.
Okay, we had lots of issues with the cashless catering, I'm afraid, to start with, and thank you for your patience with that to everybody who was contacting me and trying to get that set up. If you could contact reception and ask to be put through to Tarina. Tarina Smith is our admin who is dealing with cashless catering at the moment, and she will be able to resolve any issues that still exist.
Thank you, Miss. We've got another question. How can we get login details for the Google Classroom?
Okay, so your children should have already been given those login details in their computing lessons. They have to use Google Classroom in their computing lessons. So it's exactly the same login details as they use for that. However, if you would like them personally as parents, I'm assuming we are able to give those out because I do support parents at home with children who are using the Google Classroom. So if you contact the form teacher, and I will make sure that those details are with form teachers so that they can support with that.
Thank you, Mrs. Haynes. One more question for the time being. Can text messages be sent to more than one number?
Okay, so the text messaging system is set up so that it texts to the first priority parent or carer on our system. However, we are able to add a second parent to the system. The difficulty that occurs with this is if we send a text message out to the entire year group, that's easy enough. However, if individual members of staff are sending text messages to individual pupils, they often, when they look for the pupil's name, it will only go to the first priority parent. So we can set up, yes, we can set up a second parent and add a second number to the text messaging system, but it's possible that you will only get the general text messages, not necessarily every text message that's sent, if that makes sense. It is a little bit of a flaw in the system which doesn't allow us to send to any more than one listed, so we have to add them separately. Is there anything else?
Yes, there's a comment here. Mr. Osborne's email address in the PowerPoint, I think, came up as Miss Miles. So that email address would be for Mr. Osborne would be paul.osborne@chs.schoolsedu.org.uk.
Thank you. So the tail end of the email address is the same. It just is paul.osborne at the start. I'm sorry about that. That's my copying and pasting, trying to be efficient and not being particularly efficient. I just had a thought that lots of parents had queried, and I know there is some concern regarding lunchtime for Year 7 pupils, and this happens every year. It is something that I get lots of comments and queries about. So lunchtime is half an hour for our children, which when they're used to being on lunch for an hour, it's a very short period of time when they come into school, and it takes them a little while to adjust. Now, Year 7 have actually been having 40 minutes for lunch because they've been going earlier anyway for the time being. But I just want to reassure parents that half an hour, actually, when they get into it, is more than enough time for them to get their hot meal and to sit down and eat their meal. If they're hanging about, if they're dawdling, if they're chatting and not really getting on with eating, then obviously it does take them lots longer. But the half an hour lunchtime we've found over the years is a much better scenario than having a full hour's lunchtime. Two reasons really. Firstly, what we found previously when we had a much longer lunch was after children have eaten lunch, they go out to their outside space, they start to mess around, they start playing. Then particularly with the boys, unfortunately, it sort of gets into a bit of toy fighting, and we ended up that there were lots of issues happening just because children had too much time on their hands, and just the play was becoming out of hand. So we find that is less so now with the children having a shorter lunch. If they actually are sensible, they have time to eat, they have time to go up to the red gra, they have time to run around, and it is actually plenty of time. Secondly, lots of our parents rely on children finishing at 10 to 3 in order to collect younger siblings from primary schools. So it does help that we have a shorter lunch and are able to finish earlier, because it does mean that those children are able to support their families in collecting younger siblings. So, you know, it works twofold for us. And I just wanted to give you reassurance that it is plenty of time for children to get through the canteen and to eat and to have a little bit of run around. We haven't ever considered that it's actually far too short for them. Any more questions?
Yes, we've got a couple. Is it school policy that teachers are not marking classwork or exercise books as they are unable to touch the books at the moment?
Is Mrs. Abdullah there able to help with that one? It was previously, but I'm not sure. We are still obviously currently working under COVID restrictions. And it is very difficult with the marking of books because we have to touch them. We then have to give them back to children. Assessed work, I know, is absolutely being marked. That's without question. But the marking of books, I've not had an update on that. So as far as I was aware, we are still incidentally marking as and when we can, which is safe for pupils and staff.
Okay, thank you, Miss. If you just scroll down a minute here, we've got a couple more, I think. We've got, hello, my son was put into a class with his only friend, and he's currently going through the process of being diagnosed with ASD. I'm concerned if he has to keep moving classes after half term.
Okay, and I mean that I know that's a little bit specific, but it may be a concern to other parents as well. So I will discuss that one. Obviously, we know there are children who have very specific needs, and there are children who have high levels of anxiety, and there are children who will struggle with changing class again, and I do appreciate that that's a difficult one when they're just settling in and then they're likely to move class again. But it is important that we make sure that they are in an appropriate setting for their learning as we go through the rest of Year 7. Now, obviously, they've been in school a few weeks now, and they will have become familiar, even though they may not be best friends, they will have become familiar with lots of children in their classes. And so when we move now at half term, that change becomes a little less daunting than it would have been when they first joined us if they weren't with their friend or somebody that they were familiar with. Whatever moves take place, you know, we will try and contact parents, particularly of those children who will find it difficult, just to give you a little heads up and to sort of give you some warning. But it is something that, you know, we do have to support children through as we work through the year. We don't just move children and throw them into the classroom and let them get on with it. We do understand that some children are going to find that very difficult and will need some extra support. So we work as best we can to ensure that they are feeling settled, feeling calm as they go into new classes.
Thank you, Mrs. Haynes. We've got a couple more questions. When will Year 7 go back to 30 minutes for lunch, and how will pupils know if they are moving classes after half term?
Okay, the 30 minutes for lunch, they're still going a little bit early at the moment, but we are actually getting through that quite quickly. So I would think within the next week or so, we'll be moving that down to the 30-minute lunch. I'm sorry, what was the second part of? Oh, how will they know which class they're going into? Is it that one?
Yeah, how will pupils know if they're moving classes after?
Well, we'll be talking to the children just before half term and explaining to them that it is likely that they're going to be moving. There will be lots of class changes. And while some children may not physically move teaching group, obviously they're going to need to get used to lots of different children in the group that they're being taught in. So for everybody, this is going to be a big changeover. We can't personally say to every child, right, you're going to be in class with this child, you're going to be with this pupil. That would be very, very difficult, but we will be talking to pupils about it. We will be advising them on why and the reasons behind that, and we will be talking to them about the support that they can get and giving it a go. And this is what we talk about, you know, it's important that everybody gives it a go. We have a responsibility to prepare children for life now as they go through school. They're only going to be with us 5 years, and that's going to go very, very quickly. So we have to prepare them for things that will occur in life, and they will have changes in life that they have to face and they have to manage. And so we need to support them through that and prepare them for those changes that they'll see later on in life. And you know, change of class, while it is a big deal at the moment, they, as I explained, will be more familiar with other children in the class now than they were to start with. And so it is just something that they have to get used to and work with us, and we work with them and yourselves to support them through those changes.
Thank you, Miss. We've got a couple more questions. How many sets will there be after half term? Oop, it's just gone up there. We've got an extra comment come in. How many sets will there be after half term? I'm wondering about the numbers in each class.
Okay, after half term, we have eight classes in Year 7, and so at the moment, some of those classes are quite large, so we will be looking to even that out a little bit more as we go into the next half term, and that just worked because we basically had lots of children joined the school late on in August, and we needed to put those children into classes. So, you know, it is a case of we do need to rebalance things a little bit in some of those groups. However, it's not unusual for secondary school classes to be over 30. Obviously, there are children with specific needs who will need to be in a slightly smaller group. So there will always be at least one smaller group in the year group. And the other groups then will be the numbers that they will be according to the numbers that we have in the year group. But it isn't unusual for teaching classes to be over 30 in a secondary school.
Thank you, Mrs. Haynes. We've got a couple more that have come in. Where can we see updates of children who attend the ASD base? They say that they know there was a Facebook page. Will this be reactivated?
Okay, so the Proud to Share page was always very popular on Facebook. I'm not sure if that's currently being updated, but that's something I can look into. But parents and carers are welcome to contact the ASD base directly for any updates regarding progress of pupils in those bases. We also have a HIB base where, again, parents are welcome to contact. There's Mrs. Payne in the ASD base and Mrs. Sims in the HIB base, and they will give you an update on progress for your individual child if you want to contact them directly.
Thank you, Miss. Got a couple more. Is there an online version of the children's timetable so parents can see what they have on and make sure that they're organised?
Okay. Oh, I like parents checking on organisation. Thank you. I'm not sure if I have class charts for my own children and I'm able to see their timetable, but I'm not sure if our parents are able to see that for our school. So I will need to double check that. Otherwise, it isn't visible anywhere else for parents to be able to see. What I would normally ask our children when they come in Year 7 to do is take a photograph of their timetable, and then obviously if you would like a copy of the timetable, they can just send you a copy of the photograph so that you have that. And obviously if they will have new timetables after half term, so we'll encourage them when they have their new timetables to do the same, take a photograph and maybe make sure that that's sent through to yourself so that you have a copy of that also. But I will check on class charts whether or not the timetable is visible to our parents through class charts, or if that can be done.
Thank you, Mrs. Haynes. We've got a couple more. Are children able to use the toilet during classes? Oh, it's gone up again. If they're desperate, I understand there is not a lot of time to go between classes and some may not be able to hold until break or lunchtime.
Okay. Previously we had very long lessons. They were an hour and 40 minutes, I think, hour and 20 minutes, something like that. So we're in the habit of allowing children to go out of class to go to the toilet as and when, and that became quite onerous. It became quite disruptive. We had lots of children going because somebody else asked to go, and it's very unmanageable. Now, we have been asked as a staff by the head teacher that children don't go out of lessons to the toilet. They are 1 hour lessons, and they are able to go to the toilet before, in between lessons, and break time and lunch time. Now, obviously, we do understand that some children will need to go, and teachers are asked to be sensible and use their discretion if a child asks to go to the toilet during lessons. Now, mostly myself, I would say, oh, you're not really supposed to go. Give it a couple of minutes, and if you still need to go, ask me again. And a lot of children won't ask again because sometimes it is just because they need to go out of class. If they ask me again, I really wouldn't refuse and make them sit and wait, because that isn't appropriate. But we do have to be sensible. If a child has a medical condition, I have been made aware of some, but if you know that your child has a medical condition and I'm not aware of that, then you do need to contact me, and we can give that child a medical pass so that they show that to the teacher, and the teacher allows them to go to the toilet without question, as we do realise that there are some children who will need access to the toilets as and when. But it's not that we're inhumane and we're trying to keep them sitting in their seats busting to go to the loo, but we do need to be reasonable, and it can become very disruptive to lessons. So we try to minimise the disruption and just encourage children to go at appropriate times if they can. But as I said, we are using our discretion, and we are trying to be sensible if children absolutely clearly do need to go.
Thank you, Miss. We've got another question here. It's my son says he's learning currently the 2 times table in class and finding it quite basic. When will maths be sort of delivered at their level? And they've also said we were told originally that children in ALN would not be moving around the school and in a smaller class, but my son appears to be moving around a lot.
Okay, the 2 times table, I mean, that really needs to be addressed with the maths department. So if you have a specific concern about what your child is being taught in a lesson, then I would urge you to, as I put in the slides, contact the reception, ask if the maths teacher can give you a ring so that they can discuss with you specifically what's happening. Obviously, they do need to recap and go over and check that all pupils are able to do the basics. But I can't comment, as I'm not a maths teacher, I can't comment on what is specifically being taught there. So if you could contact reception and ask your child's maths teacher to give you a call, then, to discuss that there, then I'd be really grateful with that. The ALN class, we have tried different strategies, sometimes where they stay in class and they don't move around with the children within those ALN classes, and then we've tried children moving around class, and we find that actually they often don't want to be treated differently to other children. So we've decided that all children now this year we're going to be moving around the whole school, and we have not found any difficulty with it. Obviously, they all get lost to start with, and they're all looking a little bit puzzled moving around. But actually, we find that they've coped really well. There are always going to be a few children who find things really difficult, and we support those children individually. But we have to try and encourage children to be independent, and this is a big step for them. And I'm really proud of the way that the whole of Year 7 have started with us at Cwmbran High School, and I haven't found this year that any of the children moving around school has been a problem. We have had a few upset children because they lost their class and they couldn't find their way, but that's the nature of the beast. That's how it is every year. And we just encourage children to ask for help if they're lost, if they can't find their way, to just talk to a member of staff. And we've had our cleaning ladies and our caretakers and dinner ladies, and they've all been helping pupils find their way around school. So we haven't found that there are any children not managing that movement around school. Obviously, if it's different for individual children, please let me know and I can look into that. Anything?
Thank you there, Miss. I should have said actually that Mrs. Abdullah has been putting the email addresses of the relevant people. So she's just put the Mr. Tippings, who's the head of maths, email address into the chat. There was another question or comment that sort of relates to the previous one, that there's a bit of a concern about moving classes after half term, and they're concerned about this as their son struggles a lot.
And that's, if you have, individual concerns, then please contact me. And then as obviously we get to that point in the year where those changes are going to take place, we can have individual comments about that. For most children, they sort of have a day or two where they feel a little bit anxious. It's all a little bit different. And within a couple of days, they're settled again and they're moving on. But obviously for individual children, I'm happy to have those separate conversations with parents on how we manage that and how it works, just to make sure that for all children, that process is as smooth as possible. Is there anything else at all?
Thank you, Mrs. Haynes. Currently, there's no more questions.
Was there anybody else? I did see a hand up earlier, but it's disappeared off my screen now and I didn't catch the name. Was there anybody else now? Let me just stop presenting that so I can come back to screen. Okay, is there anything else you need to add, Mrs. Abdullah? You're on mute still, miss. Can't hear you.
How many times do we hear that? Mrs. Abdullah, you're on mute. Just to say thank you very much, obviously, for all the parents who've come on board again today to see us. It's always a delight to see you. And obviously we've got the points of contact being the form teachers primarily. But obviously you've got Mrs. Haynes, you've got Mr. Benson, you've got myself. We're all available to support Year 7. From my point of view, they're just adorable. And I think the fact that we spent so long on Teams with you and your children before, as we seem to know them more than we did before, more than we do our regular Year 7s coming in that we sort of see once or twice throughout the year. And we recognise the faces and they recognise us, and it's always lovely to see them, and they're always chirpy and smiley, aren't they, Mrs. Haynes? It's just from my point of view, they've settled in really, really well. And the fact that they recognise us, I think, is great. And they've always got little stories to tell. And it's just great. So you should be really proud of all the children that have joined us in Year 7.
I have to say, I think these children, I've been really, really surprised this year at just how polite and respectful, and I'm getting lots of good morning, Mrs. Haynes, and opening doors and just those small things which you don't see as much now as perhaps we used to. But this Year 7 this year have really surprised me with just how lovely they are with their good manners and how willing they are to engage with teachers. So I've been really, really pleased with them. I'm really proud of them. I did notice a parent called Kat, your hand did go up and it's gone down again. Did you have a question, or are we just testing out the hand function? Putting the hand up. No? Okay.
Okay, well, thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
We'll probably speak to you all soon and hopefully get to see you in real life one day soon. But obviously, we just don't know what's happening with this pandemic. But everything is being recorded. So if there's anything that you think you've missed, or you think, well, actually, I don't know the answer to that, it will go onto the website and it's been recorded as well. So you can always get a copy of it. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. We'll see you all soon.
Thank you. Good evening.
Ta-ra.
And take care.